at state governments around this country, I mean, in fact, I heard Granholm on the radio today. She's trolloping off to Washington now to, you know, to ask for more stimulus money. I mean, this is just the routine that we're in. We just all go to Washington, hat in hand, to bail us out. And, you know, at some point, that has got to stop. And we have to make tough decisions about things like illegal immigration. Again, you can do it in a way that doesn't throw people on the back of a truck and drop them off on the other side of the river, but you have to end the incentives for people to come here. If you do that, people will make decisions in their own self-interest, and they'll say, well, you know, maybe that isn't worth, you know, making that over. Now, Mexico is a huge problem. They got a lot of issues over there too. But by the same token, I think we've got to look out for American citizens first and recognize that American people will do these jobs if they're given a fair chance to compete.
How do you feel about amnesty?
I'm opposed to amnesty. I don't believe that you should take somebody who sort of jumped the fence and then goes to the head of the line. I mean, I have a number of friends and supporters and people I've known who are first generation, who went through the process legally and are here legally. Now, I think if we're not alive, if we're unreasonable in the amount of people that we are letting into this country, we could review those numbers. But I don't think that's a huge issue. But what I'm suggesting is that no on amnesty. If you want to become an American citizen and you do it the right way, we're here with open arms. But if you think you're going to, you know, cut corners and get here the other way, no way. No way.
What do you think should be done with the health care bill if you've got into office? They're talking about repealing it, they're talking about revising it.
Well, I do think that, you know, that it is so flawed that it needs to be repealed and replaced. But I also know this, that as long as Barack Obama's in the White House, he's not going to sign any legislation that's going to repeal or certainly even to replace the health care bill. So the first thing we have to do is to use our legislative tools at our disposal. You know, there's about 150, roughly, new boards and commissions that have been created by this health care bill. Everything from this commission to that commission to studying this to studying that. And Ronald Reagan used to say that, you know, the closest thing to eternal life is a government program. And so what we have to do immediately is to make sure that we don't fund these 150 boards and commissions, so they don't sink roots into our society and begin to sort of set the stage for the program itself, which is slated to begin in 2014. So we're going to have to get tough right off the bat, going back to your question, and saying, okay, you know, if we have the votes, and if we don't have the votes, it's just going to happen. If we don't, you know, get control of Congress, then let's kick our door at that point. But if we do have the votes, and we're able to defund, unfund, not fund, whatever you want to call it, these boards and commissions, then we can buy ourselves enough time to get a new president and come back with a health care bill the American people can embrace. And what I'd said, we talked about earlier, providing tax credits for people so that they can enter the individual insurance market, you know, based on their income and means tested. But, you know, right now, if you work for your employer, you get a health care plan, and they pay for it with pre-tax dollars. But if you're, you know, not paying the corporate tax rate, you're a Schedule C, or you've got COBRA, you're unemployed, you got to go out and find a policy. Heaven forbid, because it is very, very expensive. What I'd like to see us do is to say, okay, we're going to give you tax credits to go into the individual insurance market. So now you've got some resources, and even frankly, if you work for General Motors, even at General Motors, you get one plan. This is maybe a couple of choices, but maybe that's not right for you either. So if you said, you know what, I'm going to opt out of the General Motors plan, I'm going to go into the individual insurance market, I'm going to use my tax credits to go and find a policy that works for myself and my family. And again, it may be anywhere in this country where that's available to you. But I can assure you that now if we had an influx of people out buying insurance for themselves and their family, anywhere in the country, competition is going to increase. And the one thing that we can do more than anything else to bring down the cost of health care is to increase competition where none exists today. So those are the couple of things I do. I make sure that we have meaningful tort reform in this bill. You know, this bill basically throws out what they've done in Michigan. Years ago, Michigan got, you know, very tough or reasonable on tort reform. Well, that's wiped out because there's now a new federal standard. So we're back to sort of the old days where the trial lawyers and they're, you know, come run through and they'll set up the system the way they want it. That has to be changed. I think you do have to go back to these health savings accounts and incentivize people to be more in charge of their own health care. But I also think, and the one area where I'm certainly in agreement with this plan is on the question of pre-existing conditions, because this is a fundamental problem. I mean, and we all know that if you have health, you know, if you have a problem and you can't get insurance, you got real trouble. But what I'd like to see us do is to have these high-risk pools in each state that if you, let's say you went to a traditional insurance company, they said, no, we're not going to give you insurance because you've got, you know, pre-existing condition. Well, you have the option, whatever state you live in, to go into then to that high-risk pool. But I don't want to.
Would those be private companies or not government, like the government programs? It would be a private.
The high-risk pool, you know, it might be a government-administered fund, but I think there's a better way to do it, and I think the insurance companies would buy into this, because I would say, okay, insurance company, you wouldn't underwrite her. You now have to pay part of her, a portion of her insurance cost to go into the state pool. And I would force those companies who are doing business in the state, or what have you, to participate in the administration of it. I do think that there's some details that need to be worked out. My point is this, that I want to see everyone be able to get coverage if they need coverage. I want it to be reasonable, and I don't want to let the insurance companies off the hook. I don't want them to continue to cherry pick and say, we're going to just take the healthiest people and the heck with the rest of it. If you're not going to write insurance for people who need your services, then there's a price to pay if you want to do business in our state. But I do want to do away with the things like the mandatory insurance coverage. There's something called the guaranteed issue under this plan. So you see what's going to happen. I mean, people are going to just say, okay, well, I'll pay the fine, you know, and then when I get sick, then I'll go get insurance. And that's not going to bring down the cost of health care at all, because the rest of us who are buying and carrying insurance are going to get socked every time that happens. It just is a convoluted system that doesn't need to be structured the way this plan
I wonder, Paul, like I have private insurance. I buy my own insurance.
Right.
And it seems to me that healthcare is the only commodity we have that they don't post the price. You go to the grocery store,
Right.
you know what a gallon of milk costs.
Absolutely.
You have no clue what things in your healthcare cost.
That's right.
So I shop around and say I wanted to get a mammogram. I pay out of my pocket.
Sure.
Right? I called 3 different hospitals. I got 3 dramatically different prices. But they talked to me like I was from the moon.
Crazy, yeah.
I want to know what the price of a mammogram. Why would you want to know that? But I forced the issue, and I found there was one hospital was $800, one hospital was $400. Huge difference. So guess which hospital I went to?
Absolutely, yeah.
But
You want to bring down healthcare
Why
costs?
doesn't anybody talk
Spend your own
about
money.
posting prices?
Well, I think that's
So
an
people know
important
what it
part.
costs.
Absolutely. I think they need to post the prices, they need to post their results so you know what
And
you're
that would
getting.
put competition immediately into the system.
Absolutely. And as I said before, you know, right now, you don't see any of that. I mean, even what you did, think of most people who have traditional Blue Cross coverage, they have no idea what's going on. They get that thing in the mail, say, this is not a bill. I guarantee you that goes to the other stack on the desk somewhere.
Just like in a grocery store, and that would immediately lower costs.
You betcha.